From the Garcelon Civic Center, the St. Stephen Area Chamber of Commerce and CHCO Television present Meet Your Candidates. New Brunswick Southwest Votes. And now, Chamber President Sarah Connolly.
Good evening and welcome to the Meet Your Federal Candidates Night 2021. I'm Sarah Connolly, President of the St. Stephen Area Chamber of Commerce. Before we meet the candidates, I'd like to thank the partner organizations for making this event possible at such short notice. Thank you to the Town of St. Stephen, the St. Stephen Area Chamber of Commerce, and CHCO-TV. I'd also like to thank the Town of St. Stephen and the Garcelon Civic Center for providing the venue tonight, Vicki Hogarth for moderating, and CHCO-TV for production. So I'd like to introduce our candidates now. They're seated in alphabetical order by last name. We have Jason Hickey, representing the Liberal Party, John Reist, representing the Green Party, Meryl Sarty, representing the People's Party of Canada, Richard Trevor Warren, representing NDP, and John Williamson, representing the Conservative Party. I'll now ask Vicki to come up and moderate the event for the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and good evening, candidates. It's a pleasure to be your moderator tonight. This is not a traditional debate. It's an opportunity for voters to hear directly from their New Brunswick Southwest candidates, to find out where you and your party stand on important issues that affect their lives and their riding. The rules are simple. We ask that the candidates to be respectful of one another, allowing each other the opportunity to answer questions without being interrupted. Each candidate will be given 3 minutes to make an opening statement. You are seated alphabetically, so we will start with Jason Hickey and end with John Williamson. We will then proceed to the question period. The questions have all been pre-submitted by the public and vetted by the St. Stephen Chamber. We will rotate who goes first for fairness. So for question period, John Reist, you will go first. For question 2, we'll start with Meryl. I'll repeat each question for each candidate. You will have up to 1 minute to answer. A warning bell will ring 15 seconds before your time is up, and once again when your time is finished. The number of questions we get to will depend on how fast we go this evening. At the end, each candidate will have 3 minutes to make closing remarks, and John will start with you and end with Jason. So let's get right to it and start with question 1. Oh, sorry, not question 1. With opening remarks, Jason, you are first.
Thanks, Vicki. As we enter into this important election, I guess I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Jason Hickey. I am originally from Newfoundland and Labrador. I learned the importance of hard work, good representation, and fighting for what you believe in at a really young age. I started knocking on doors with my mother, Bonnie Hickey, the first female elected into the House of Commons from Newfoundland. Throughout my career in hospitality and tourism sector, my goal has always been to help improve my clients' business. My consulting practices focus on reducing wasteful spending, making businesses more efficient, and ensuring that we hire the right people for the right jobs. It's this business experience that I will bring to Ottawa as your Member of Parliament. As we rebuild in the wake of the pandemic, we are at a crossroads. I know I want a government that has a comprehensive plan to address climate change. I want a government that deals with affordability and for housing, for childcare, and supporting our seniors. I want a Liberal government that works for each and every one of you. And here, I know that we need a strong government that works for everyone, and if I am elected as your Member of Parliament, I will make sure that the voices of New Brunswick Southwest are heard. I decided to run in office because I believe that the Liberal Party has a correct vision for a brighter future for Canadians, and together we can move together forward.
John, you are up.
I would like to thank CHCO-TV and the St. Stephen Area Chamber of Commerce for holding this event and allowing you, the viewer, the opportunity to listen to candidates in this election. For those who do not know me, my name is John Reist. I am representing the Green Party of Canada. I live locally in Rolling Dam and recently retired from Canada Post and as a rural mail driver. As the CEO of New Brunswick Southwest Greens, I want to build a presence for the Green Party in our riding. and represent the issues that are important to our community. Many people look at the Green Party as a one-issue party. We are not. We stand for aggressive social policies that make housing and education accessible. We stand for ethics in government, telling the truth and making electrical system that makes your vote count. In fact, we stand for most of the things that most Canadians stand for, and that is why I'm running for the Green Party. We need to send Greens to Ottawa we need to send more Greens to Ottawa to bring new ideas to government. Vote Green in this election.
Meryl, your 3 minutes start now.
Southwest for the People's Party of Canada. Last thing in the world I wanted to do at my age, I'm 77, was be a politician. However, I think there's a need for it right now. And my goal in all of this is to help bring this country back into operation where everybody has a chance to get back to living their lives again, to earning their livings again. And I would like to be a voice for the people in this area. And I am not afraid to address the elephant in the room. And one of the elephants I'm going to address right now is I'd like to thank the Chamber Board of Commerce here for this. I'd like to thank the people from Charlotte County for doing this event right here and covering it. And the Mr. from Quaddy, nice to have you here. I'm sorry I can't say the same thing about the people from the Telegraph Journal. There's a lot of distortion in their reporting, which I don't find in the others, and I'd like to point that to an elephant in the room for me. I've been a soldier, a sailor, a woodsman. I've been a farmer and an educator, and now I'm a politician. I give it everything I've got, and political correctness is not my game. We're not into pork barrel politics in the People's Party of Canada. We work for the whole country all the time, and we try to do it honestly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Meryl. Richard, your 3 minutes start now.
Thanks, Vicki. Hello, everyone. I'm Richard Warren, your NDP candidate for New Brunswick Southwest. On September 20th, you have a choice between the parties that have broken one promise after another, time and time again, or voting for myself, Jagmeet Singh, and the NDP, who are fighting for you. On September 20th, we can do better. Let me tell you how. In every corner of the country, families are worried about jobs, the health of our loved ones, the climate crisis, and the public services that we all depend on so dearly. The past 18 months have shown that standing together, Canadians can confront any challenge. It's also shown us that thanks to the decisions of previous governments, many of the supports that we rely on just weren't there when we needed them. If we want different results, we need to make different choices. What we need now is the courage to act together, and that's exactly what New Democrats offer Canadians. We can make life more affordable for everyday people by investing in healthcare, affordable housing, pharmacare, and childcare. We can build an economy that works better for more people by ensuring access to quality, affordable childcare, making employment insurance work for you, ensuring more accessible job training and lifelong learning for all, supporting small businesses, and we'll protect family budgets and force big corporations and big polluters to start paying what they owe. We've listened and we've compiled a detailed plan to combat the climate crisis that will create good jobs and a green economy. And we will undertake the important work of reconciliation in good faith and in true equal partnership with the Indigenous communities across the country. I'd also here like to add that for me, the duty of this job as Member of Parliament is to represent you in Ottawa, not me, not the party, you. And making sure that public services and public interests are working together effectively. I've had the privilege of talking about these and other priorities on doorsteps and on the street, and I hope today that this will give me another opportunity to expand on some of our commitments. I look forward to your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. John, your 3 minutes start now.
Thank you, Vicki, and thank you to the Chamber in St. Andrews and CHCO for televising today's important debate. Hi, my name is John Williamson, and I'm your Conservative candidate in New Brunswick Southwest. I'm a dad to my inquisitive 14-month-old daughter, Charlotte, and husband to my wife, Kelly, who has served in the Canadian Armed Forces for over 20 years. We live in St. Andrews in beautiful Charlotte County, and it's been an honor to represent the many diverse rural, coastal, and island communities throughout our riding. From Gagetown to Cambridge Narrows, Oppahawk and Macadam to Blacks Harbour, St. Andrews, St. George, St. Stephen to Campebello and Whitehead Island, we have a big riding with many diverse issues and concerns. The rising cost of living, access to good, high-speed rural internet, mental health, health funding, C71 are just some of the issues I've been hearing on the doors from voters across this big riding. I want to thank all the candidates for stepping up and putting their name on the ballot. During the election, we'll exchange ideas, we'll spar, and while each of us will carry our colors, at the end of this election, we'll put them away and we'll again work together with the 14 municipalities in New Brunswick Southwest, the provincial government, to ensure that our riding is heard in the federal parliament and we get things done for New Brunswick Southwest. So I look forward to the debate tonight. I look forward to speaking with voters over the next couple of days as we head to September 20th, the election, when you, the voters, will make the final decision on who represents you and your voice in the federal parliament. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, John. Now we move on to the fun part of the night, the question period. Just a reminder, you each have up to 1 minute to answer each question. We'll ring a bell at around 45 seconds just to let you know it's time to wrap up, and again at the 60-second moment to let you know that you are done. And as I mentioned before, we'll be rotating who goes first for fairness. So if you are ready, oh, and again, I would like to mention for the people at home, these are all questions submitted by voters, vetted by the St. Stephen Chamber. There were a lot of questions submitted, so we tried to find common themes and put them all into questions that really represented everyone's concerns as best we could. So if you hear a question and it doesn't sound exactly how you worded something, that's because it was probably put together with other people's questions just so we hit on every note that was addressed by the voters. So we are going to start the first question with John Reist. Are you ready? Okay.
I'll try.
And I will repeat the question for everyone, and your time will start as soon as I'm done reading the question for you. So John, what is your position on mandatory COVID-19 vaccinations?
Oh, I believe that everyone should get a vaccine. We should be, with COVID-19, it is seriously affecting our country, the world. It is important that every single person has a vaccine. I know there is a lot of people that complain that, oh, I don't want to take the vaccine because they're listening to information that's on the internet that is misleading and is spreading doubt and fear. But I would please ask people to look at the facts. Vaccines do work. People there are people still in the hospital, but the people that are in the hospital, they have not been vaccinated.
Now we're moving on to Meryl. Meryl, what is your position on mandatory COVID-19 vaccinations?
My position on the mandatory vaccines is we have one of the freedoms that we enjoy in this country is sovereignty over our bodies. The Nuremberg trials held that out. And that was a standard that was set for the world. The Nuremberg trial outcomes are not being honored, and I believe that forcing vaccinations on people is a violation of the Nuremberg Code, and it's a violation of the rights of us as Canadian citizens over our bodies. That's it.
Thank you, Meryl. Richard, what is your position on mandatory COVID-19 vaccinations?
So mandatory COVID-19 vaccinations are something that just sounds wrong in my mouth. I don't think we should be forcing people to put anything into their bodies. I think we do have a duty to protect people who can't be vaccinated. We've got kids and some people who just can't get a vaccine. So there's a duty to protect there, and I think that's where that fear is coming from. I feel government could do a better job of making sure that the facts about the vaccine and its side effects and putting those alongside of proportional risk assessments of not getting the vaccine. I think we could do a way better job of that. I also fear that it seems like some people feel that the government might be silencing some voices, and that's not going to help the situation. Yeah, I think on September 20th we can do better.
Thank you, Richard. John, what is your position on mandatory COVID-19 vaccinations?
So I believe vaccines are a safe and effective tool to stop the spread of COVID-19. And I encourage Canadians to get the shot to keep themselves and their families healthy. But having said that, Conservatives also strongly believe that Canadians have the right to make their own health choices. And so while we think there is safety in taking the vaccine, we also understand that Canadians have to make that choice for themselves and decide what's best for themselves in their own health. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Jason, you're last. What is your position on mandatory COVID-19 vaccinations?
Well, I think it's very important that everyone get vaccinated. I think it's the only way that we get out of this unscathed. If we listen to our leader, he's very adamant about getting vaccinations into everyone that's able to, 12 and up. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we've invested more than $250 million in studies of the COVID-19, so I do think they are safe for us to use, and I think it's really important that we all get vaccinated, and we put more money and more support into the proof of vaccinations moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Well, we didn't start off easy. So moving on to question 2, Meryl, you will be up first for this question, so here it is, and your time will start when I'm done reading it. Most countries have increased their debts to keep their citizens' finances stable during the difficult time of the pandemic, and Canada is no exception. What is the view of your party and your personal opinion regarding the handling of the debt over the next term of government?
Handling the debt over the next term of government. Okay. I think the debt handling in this term of government has been a total disaster. I think it's destroyed a lot of our country. It was unnecessary. The fact that people weren't allowed to go to church, but they were allowed to go to Walmart or any of the big box stores, that small businessmen were put out of business. They shut down our movements between provinces. All of these are violations of our freedom in this country. And I think what the government has done, our government in this, has been a total disaster, and I think we could do a whole lot better. I don't think we need the shutdowns that we've had. And it's funny that our politicians were very, very absent in that, except for 4. One of them wasn't a politician. He was a lawyer, Rocco Galati. Derek Sloan, Max Bernier, and Randy Hillier were 4 men who stood up.
Richard, we're moving on to Richard now, Meryl. We have to be strict with the time, unfortunately. Richard, what is the view of your party and your personal opinion regarding the handling of the debt over the next term of government?
So the big thing for me with the debt right now is we're not collecting taxes. We're leaving money on the table from big corporations. Parties both voted against 1% tax increase on people earning $20 million or more. Good businesses don't leave that kind of money on the table. Of course, you're going to run into a deficit if you're not collecting your funds. Previous governments have also spent like money is infinite, but regular Canadians know that's not the case for us. We have limits. We can only handle so much. The NDP is a group of working class people who don't have infinite resources. We're used to doing more with less, and we're used to irking through, and we can take this money in and we can do some good stuff with it. And I believe that on September 20th, we can do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. John, what is the view of your party and your personal opinion regarding the handling of the debt over the next term of government?
So, over the last 18 months, the federal government spent a record amount of money during the COVID-19 to help Canadians. Of course, they did this with the participation of all political parties in the Parliament. About a year and a half ago, soon after COVID struck, the Liberal government presented to Parliament a budget that would have allowed it to spend and raise taxes freely for 2 years. Opposition parties, the NDP, the Bloc Québécois, led by the Conservatives, opposed that measure and instead forced the Prime Minister to come to Parliament every time the Liberals wanted to spend money so we could vet and ensure money was being spent wisely. And we're going to take the same prudent approach going forward. We'll work with Parliament, we'll work with Canadians to ensure we're spending on the priorities of Canadians. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Jason, what is the view of your party and your personal opinion regarding the handling of the debt over the next term of government?
Well, I think it's really important to realize the difference between household debt and a government debt. The two are very different and don't always, people don't always understand the same. We have the lowest debt to rate to GDP ratio in the G7 countries. We're one of the fastest recovering countries over the pandemic. We've created more jobs since the pandemic has started and now ending, and that even means we've even surpassed the U.S. for job creations. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jason. John, what is the view of your party and your personal opinion regarding the handling of the debt over the next term of government?
Well, my personal opinion of what should be done is to say we need to take a look at the taxing the people, who are the rich, the people that are abusing the loopholes, and we bring in money that way, and we should be bringing in a guaranteed livable income for those who are poor and have financial strife.
All right. Thank you, John. So we're moving on to question 3. I just want to mention to everyone watching at home right now that none of you have heard any of these questions prior to tonight. You're hearing them for the first time. I'm reading them for the first time, so you really are on the hot seat, and so tremendous respect to you all for how quickly you have to think on your feet. Richard, you're going to start question 3. Campebello Island is an island isolated from the rest of Canada and has limited accessibility to necessities such as gas, food, and transportation services. What is your plan to bring these services to Campebello Island, including a year-round ferry?
So, unfortunately, I'm not versed enough in the region to have a plan ready to go. I wish I did, but I feel like if there could have been a plan, why don't we have it already? As another fellow Newfoundlander here, sorry, I guess we're taking over, I think we can relate to the feeling of isolation, what it's like to not be able to reach the rest of the country, and it just strikes me as odd that we have people living in a place where we've sold them land and told them they can live, but yet they can't access their country all the time. It just seems ridiculous, and I think it's something we could fix, and I'd love to get in there and start working with people and figure out why we don't have a permanent solution yet. On September 20th, I'd love to give it a shot. We can do better. Thanks.
John, what is your plan to bring services to Campebello Island, including a year-round ferry?
Well, thank you. This is an important issue, not only for the residents of Campebello, but I actually think there's a sense in New Brunswick that Islanders deserve a direct link. The last 2 years, I have worked and made a lot of noise in Parliament about this. And for the first time, I was able to get the federal government to say they are open to funding infrastructure for a year-round ferry, whether that is the boat itself, the ferry itself, or the landing gear. We're seeing some progress. It will take all levels of government to make this a reality. So whether it's a ferry, working to ensure the mail passes through the state of Maine, which was a problem as well 2 years ago. I've worked on that. I'm very familiar with these issues. I've worked hard, and I think Islanders know that. This is a solution that we're going to need all levels of government to work together to get solved. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Jason, what is your plan to bring services to Campebello Island, including a year-round ferry?
Well, as an islander, I do understand the troubles that they go through. And in a re-elected government, we will enforce the Royal Transit Solution Fund. We do have $250 million in federal funding available over 5 years. Some of this grants, we will seek grants up to $50,000 in supporting the project. And the eligible applicants will get $3 million to help cover capital costs. And we've got $5 million for sub-zero emission transit solutions to help people get across the waters and get into hospitals quicker and shopping quicker.
Thank you, Jason. John, what is your plan to bring services to Campebello Island, including a year-round ferry?
I would support a year-round ferry. I believe that it is needed. It needs to be free. We also need to go and provide internet access to Campebello so people they can connect to the rest of the country with high-speed internet. Meryl?
Thank you, John. Meryl, you're last for this question. What is your plan to bring services to Campebello Island, including a year-round ferry?
Well, first of all, I'd like to point out that for years and years and years, this problem has existed, and we flip-flopped from conservatives to liberals, conservatives to liberals, and they still don't have a ferry to the island. Personally, I think that's an absolute right for the citizens of Canada who live on that island. While all the rest of us can travel to the mainland and have freedom of travel, those people cannot. And I think they've been neglected for a long time by the parties in power. Similar, I think, to what's going on with the natives and their water problem out west. It's been flipped and flopped back forth through a whole bunch of the blue and red governments, and they still don't have water. I think we'd like to do something about that and bring it to the attention of the country. These people deserve it. They are citizens, they pay their taxes, and so far they have not been honored with a solution to those problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Meryl. We are already on to question 4, if you can believe it, and John Williamson, you will be starting first for this one. There is an outpouring of grief and horror that stemmed from the discovery of unmarked graves of children at former residential schools this summer. Have you read the Truth and Reconciliation Report from 2015, and what steps will you take, if elected as MP, to implement the applicable calls to action asked for in the report?
Thank you, Vicki. This was one of the most difficult moments, I think, in recent memory for our country collectively. Obviously, COVID was difficult in a different way, but the discovery of so many unmarked graves, I think, touched Canadians. And while the history was there, and I think that those discoveries were nonetheless a wake-up call. I have read the report, and I voted in Parliament to see the federal government move ahead on this. At the same time, in the opposition, we called on the Liberals to stop the court case against Indigenous families who are seeking compensation for going to residential schools, but only on a part-time basis. So as with so many issues from the federal government, they talk a good talk, but they haven't lived up to the expectations that they set for Canadians. We'll do better. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Jason, have you read the Truth and Reconciliation Report from 2015, and what steps will you take, if elected as MP, to implement the applicable calls to action asked for in the report?
Sadly, I have not read the report, but the Liberal government knows that there's much work to do ahead of growing a connection and reconciliation with the Indigenous people. We will continue to move forward and implement the United Nations Declaration of Rights for the Indigenous people. We have an accelerated response to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, with calls to action for the National Action Plan through response to the National Inquiry in Missing and Murdered Indigenous Girls. And we've made additional investments to make our clean drinking water a commitment to First Nation countries.
Thank you, Jason. John, you're up. Have you read the Truth and Reconciliation Report from 2015, and what steps will you take, if elected as MP, to implement the applicable calls to action asked for in the report?
As Jason says, I haven't read the report, but I am familiar with it. I've heard the news and what has happened with all the unmarked graves, and it saddens me. And as I say, we should respect the indigenous people, look into the matter, bring out the truth, but also what I feel is we should be respecting indigenous rights. The indigenous people of Canada, they are having problems with water and housing, but these problems are not being solved.
Thank you, John. Meryl, have you read the Truth and Reconciliation Report from 2015, and what steps will you take if elected as MP to implement the applicable calls to action asked for in this report?
Okay. I haven't read the report. I have tried to keep up on some of the events that are going on there, and first it started out as a genocide. Then that was tamed down to something less, which comes down to unmarked graves. And there's talk about reconciliation and retribution and all of those things. I think a whole lot more investigation has to take place before we take any kind of action on that. And I certainly respect the position of the natives. They deserve our sympathy. It's a terrible thing to have that happen to children anywhere in the world. And but I think there's a lot more investigation, and I don't think we should jump to any conclusions. And whenever we talk about restitution, that's very unstable ground, okay? Because when we start paying now for the price of our history, where do we stop?
Thank you, Meryl. Richard, have you read the Truth and Reconciliation Report from 2015, and what steps will you take if elected as MP to implement the applicable calls to action asked for in this report?
Thanks, Vicki. So first of all, I'm deeply ashamed to admit that I haven't read it all yet. Canada's relationship with the Indigenous people has been deeply troubled. We're spending hundreds of millions of dollars fighting court cases, hundreds of millions of dollars of Canadian money fighting court cases. I think that has to stop. The NDP will work with First Nations people to deliver safe housing, clean drinking water, now, not in 11 years, respectful and safe access to health care, and ending the underfunding of Indigenous children's services. Personally, I really adore some of the language that we're starting to work on, where we connect with First Nations people to help them, to let them work with us as stewards of the land. I believe on September 20th we can do better.
That's your time, Richard. We're moving on to question 5. Jason, you'll start this question. Jason, what do you see the MP's role in addressing the housing crisis in our region?
Well, it's definitely our role to work with all forms of government. Since 2015, the Liberal government has launched the first ever national housing strategy with over $55 billion in investments. Within this decade, we will have created 125 new affordable housings. We've repaired almost and will renew $300,000 units going forward. And we will remove 530,000 families from poverty with the tax incentives and building houses. If the Liberal government is elected, we will invest $1 billion through the Rapid Housing Initiative in October to ensure more accessible housing and help decrease the homelessness.
Thank you, Jason. John, you're up. What do you see as the MP's role in addressing the housing crisis in our region?
Yes, there is a housing crisis in Charlotte County, in southwestern New Brunswick. It is important. We have a 0.3% vacancy rate here in St. Stephen. And if we want to go and attract people to this area, we need housing. We need housing for employment. What I would call on government to go and start building co-op housing again, and get the community involved in building community housing. It is possible. We can't just the private industry doesn't want to go. We have to make it more we need to make it more.
Time, John. Meryl, what do you see as the MP's role in addressing the housing crisis in our region?
The housing crisis in our region. Okay, first of all, I'd like to talk about where that housing crisis came from. One of them is that Canadians are being taxed to death, and their money is being given away to the rest of the world through foreign aid, and we're not looking after the people in Canada who would be building their houses if their tax dollars were not going out of the country. I think that's a serious thing. The other thing is that we've had immigration flood into our country, where housing is being provided to families of immigrants who have added nothing to this country, okay? And their needs are being looked after ahead of the citizens of this country. That's a serious mess, and I think we should clean that up. We need to clean it up at the national level, rather than thinking about there's a problem here in Charlotte County. We need to go a lot farther than that.
Thank you, Meryl. Richard, what do you see as the MP's role in addressing the housing crisis in our region?
Thanks. So everyone in Canada should have safe, affordable housing. Too many people are struggling to make ends meet every month as housing costs keep going up. Canada's housing price to income ratio is the highest in OECD. Only a third of Canadians could afford to buy a home right now. In less than a decade, the price of homes has increased by 55%. We think that we're isolated in Atlantic Canada, but I heard just this week that houses in Nunavut that were selling for $300,000 are now selling for $8,000. So the NDP will start investing to create 500,000 units of quality, affordable housing units across the country. Our plan will create jobs and build a rental cooperative and social housing that's so desperately needed in this region. We'll make sure that houses can become homes with a 20% levy on home purchases from investors living outside Canada. On September 20th, we can do better.
Thank you, Richard. John, what do you see as the MP's role in addressing the housing crisis in our region?
Great question. And as someone who lives in Charlotte County, I have seen how this problem, which began really in St. Andrews with lack of housing, has now spread to pretty much every municipality in Charlotte County, but also across this riding. And Meryl, it's not because immigrants are moving into this area. In fact, it's a problem because other Canadians in the last year have decided to come to New Brunswick because of all our many benefits. And so what I've done as the MP, this has shot up as probably one of the biggest issues we're dealing with now, because we are seeing people in St. Stephen who are being evicted and they have no place to go. I have talked with local advocates who are trying to find housing for our fellow citizens. I've met with future St. Stephen. I've met with advocate and builders. And the job of the MP is to make sure the programs from CMHC hit the ground here, so builders are building for the future and we have housing for people ASAP.
Thank you, John. And you can address something from a question before when you have another question addressed to you if you like, or save it for closing remarks, but let's not do it while the other person is speaking. We're moving on again, starting with Jason. Oh no, we're starting with John Reist this time. I promise this question did not come from anyone at CHCO. It's about media. Canadians pay some of the highest internet, cell, and TV fees in the world. If your party forms government, what is a real plan to revamp the CRTC to allow for more space and competition in the telecommunications industry?
Yes, our internet access here in New Brunswick is high, and our self-service is high compared to many countries. And as I say, we have to bring in competition and take away regulations that prevent companies from competing and from new companies from coming in and bringing rates down.
We're moving on to Meryl. Meryl, Canadians pay some of the highest internet, cell, and TV fees in the world. If your party forms government, what is a real plan to revamp the CRTC to allow for more space and competition in the telecommunications industry?
I don't know what the law is on it, but I know that the situation has arisen because the governments have allowed it in the past, and we have some of the highest rates around. I deal with kids from foreign countries, and they pay a fraction of what we're paying. They come in with their cell phones and they do just fine. But I think our government has an interaction with the CRTC that has allowed the CRTC to form a monopoly of 3 big organizations who are closing down any possibility of us lowering it. It's a business, they've got a monopoly on it, and they're going to keep it that way to keep their profits. I think we need a change of government, somebody who'll deal with that a little harder.
Thank you, Meryl. Richard, Canadians pay some of the highest internet, cell, and TV fees in the world. If your party forms government, what is a real plan to revamp the CRTC to allow for more space and competition in the telecommunications industry?
So, again, sorry, I don't have a plan to revamp the CRTC, but I do definitely recognize that we're probably doing something wrong here, because we have several companies who seem to feel entitled to this service, which I believe, and the NDP party certainly believes, that this is a public good. I think it's probably impossible to live today without the internet, so I believe that kind of puts the emphasis, the onus back on the government to provide for its people. I think we could do a better job of managing the lines that are down and understanding rights away and controlling these companies, or not controlling these companies, sorry. Just working with these companies to make sure that people are putting their best efforts forward and that it's not a predatory business. Canadians deserve access to the internet. On September 20th, I know we can do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. John, Canadians pay some of the highest internet, cell, and TV fees in the world. If your party forms government, what is a real plan to revamp the CRTC to allow for more space and competition in the telecommunications industry?
Great question. Again, like housing, this is an issue because of COVID has been thrust into the office of MPs right across the country. Again, as someone who travels these roads, knows this riding, there is, in some places in rural areas, hardly any internet. And at a time when we're working from home, when we are studying from home, or we're living from home, high-speed internet has become something that people need day in and day out. Our plan is to provide homes in rural Canada with quality high-speed internet by 2025. Sadly, I've noticed the last 2 years trying to work with municipalities and LSDs to get internet. The plan the Liberals have put forward is not allowing Southwest New Brunswick, in fact, most of New Brunswick for that matter, to qualify. That has been a problem. 2 years ago, the CRTC was going to cut cell rates. The Trudeau Liberals stepped in a year ago and said this would be bad for investment, so CRTC backed off. There's room for more competition. There's room for prices to come down.
Thanks,
we just
John.
need a government to do it.
Jason, Canadians pay some of the highest internet, cell, and TV fees in the world. If your party forms government, what is a real plan to revamp the CRTC to allow for more space and competition in the telecommunications industry?
Well, as traveling across this riding and, up to Hanwell and St. George and St. Stephen, I've witnessed and experienced no cell service, and I've experienced the slow internet at our office, and I'm sure John and the other guys here in our campaign offices, we have very slow internet. And as we've learned through the pandemic, it's important for us to stay connected. There's more students working from or learning from home. There's more people working from home. And it's imperative now than ever that we all have high-speed internet. Since 2015, the Liberal government has spent over $8 billion to support rural internet and broadband. Obviously, there is still more work to do. It has taken 400,000 people and giving them internet where they didn't have any before, but we will continue to work and build on that.
All right, well, we are already at question 7. Just to give you an idea of where time we're at 45 minutes now, so you guys are speeding right through this. I don't envy you and the position you are in. So, Meryl, you are starting question 7. What do you see as the MP's role in addressing the addiction crisis in our region?
Addressing the addiction crisis in our region. Well, I really don't have an answer for that. I don't think giving addicts safe spaces where they can do their addictions I don't think that's an answer at all. I really don't have an answer for that. I think part of it is the way we bring our children up. I grew up in a time where there wasn't this kind of addiction, but now anything goes. And we make excuses for people, okay? There takes discipline in our lives. It takes discipline, and it takes discipline as parents to deal with our children and explain and show them the results of this kind of stuff. That's the first bell? Okay. So I don't think there's an easy answer for this, but a lot of it goes with the way we educate our children into what's right, what's wrong, and what's going to have an effect on your future.
Thank you, Meryl. Richard, what do you see as the MP's role in addressing the addiction crisis in our region?
The MP's role here is about being a voice. I think it's important that we remove the stigma that we have towards people who have addictions. I believe that when you remove love and belonging from someone's life, addictions can fill that hole. I think we got to do a better job of treating each other nicer. I think when you spend your life being told that you're doing something wrong, you can seek some comfort. And you know, I think we can address this upstream. There's a lot of people. We just had a event downtown in Fredericton. I was talking with Sarah and Kate, I believe their names were. Amazing. People are already doing the work, right? It's just a matter of government stepping up and being proud enough to let people know that you know, this idea is old-fashioned, and we can move forward together. On September 20th, we can do better.
Thanks, Richard. John, what do you see as the MP's role in addressing the addiction crisis in our region?
Thank you. This is another serious problem that over the last 10 years I have noticed worsen in our communities as more individuals have become addicted and tragically lives have been lost. Our party understands that addiction is about health care. It's not about shame, it's not about jail, it's about trying to get treatment to people who are addicted. And so our party is proposing to invest an extra $60 billion in the healthcare system over the next decade. We want to see 1,000 new treatment centers being built across this country so that people who are addicted, who are facing this struggle, have a place they can turn without being ignored. So that's our plan, and it's one that I think is compassionate and will move us forward.
Thanks, John. Jason, what do you see as the MP's role in addressing the addiction crisis in our region?
Well, I believe it's a growing problem across the country, and I think with the new mental health transfer fund to the provinces will be a very important investment into the mental health. I think continuing to invest in programs that have been proven to treat mental health is really important, and we need to be compassionate, and I think we need a lot of work to go forward and working with the provinces to do that.
All right. Thank you, Jason. John, what do you see as the MP's role in addressing the addiction crisis in our region?
Okay. Well, we need more help for people who are addicted. At one time, we had workers that would be able to go and work with people who are in need or are addicted or health problems. Now we send an officer with a gun for a health check. What we should be doing is sending people, someone with who is qualified and can help the people with their problems. As I say, we have to have people that are qualified. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Well, I promised you all a short break after we got through question 7, so I will deliver on that promise. You've all been giving great answers, really thoughtful answers, different perspectives, and given voters a lot to think about so far, and I am very excited to moderate the second half of this. We will be right back after this short break.
You're watching Meet Your Candidates, Southwest New Brunswick Votes. You're watching Meet Your Candidates, Southwest New Brunswick Votes, with moderator Vicki Hogarth.
Welcome back to Meet Your Candidates, New Brunswick Southwest Votes. We are going to jump right in now to question 8. Richard, you are going first for question 8. What are your first 3 action items with regards to the environment and climate change in our region?
Yeah, so in our region, it's a tough one. Thanks, Vicki. I do believe we have some issues here with logging that need to be addressed. We've got coastal erosion issues. Honestly, I'm not really sure my first 3 things in this region what I would do in terms of climate change. I mean, climate change, the climate crisis is obviously a huge issue. But I'm sorry, I can't really think of 3 things or things to give you off the top of my head right now. Yeah, I'm going to think about that and get back though.
All right,
Thank
you can always address it in a follow-up question, Richard, if you like. John, you are next. What are your first 3 action items with regards to the environment and climate change in our region?
Well, thank you very much, Vicki, for the questions. And under our leader, Aaron O'Toole, we've Conservatives have put forward, I think, a credible plan to manage and prepare Canada for changes that are coming to the environment. Now, specifically to New Brunswick Southwest, which is really where your question is, increasingly we're seeing a multi-party agreement around the need for small modular reactors. And of course, we have Le Pro nuclear reactor in this riding, which does provide a lot of power to the province at a very affordable price, and of course, it is CO2 free. And so now the science and the research, as well as the need, indicates that small modular reactors could provide affordable energy that is good for the environment. I think as well, the other 2 points would be around adaptation and mitigation for communities on the coastline to ensure they're not negatively impacted. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Jason, what are your first 3 action items with regards to the environment and climate change in our region?
Well, I think some of the first things we need to do is make sure that we create more green jobs. That's, and recycling programs, and to continue to cut down on emissions and making our companies pay for the carbon tax. And of course, like John said, we need to concentrate on getting the small modular reactors up online. It's a great new structure. It's the first technology in 5 decades, and I think moving forward, it can put New Brunswick Southwest on the map.
All right, thank you. And obviously, it's no problem when you guys agree with each other. It's fine to say that. John, what?
That's because I'm green.
You are green, so get ready. I'll repeat the question, give you a little bit more time. What are the first 3 action items with regards to the environment and climate change in our region?
Well, we had to get rid of fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are causing a main problem with our climate. We have to find an alternative mix with solar, wind, and SMRs. I differ from other Greens. I do believe in nuclear is an answer. And as I say, by going and putting our money into alternative energy, we can go and create a green economy. A lot of people say, well, we can't afford it. But as I say, if we get green jobs, we can turn this thing around. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Meryl? What are the first 3 action items with regards to the environment and climate change in our region?
Okay. First of all, a lot of what we're hearing about climate change is a hoax. Back in the 60s, they told us that we would be underwater by now, that Florida would be underwater, our coastal cities would be underwater. Hasn't happened. So there's a lot of prediction there went on that really wasn't very well founded. Second is, we here in Canada, and certainly in the Maritimes, we have one of the lowest pollution levels in the world, and we are paying for other people's pollution. For instance, Canada is investing in 14 coal-powered operations in China. We have given China access, I believe, to the northern oceans to drill our oil, which we can't drill. Okay? So I think there's a lot about that. I think we should be using our oil and gas to build our economy in this country, and we are clean. We are cleaner than most of the people that are out there. We should not be penalized for what the rest of the world is doing.
Thanks, Meryl. We're going on to question 9. John, you start first for this one. What changes do you recommend to the EI program to encourage people to return to work sooner?
Well, thank you, Vicki. I'm not sure, well, in fact, I disagree the problems with the EI program. Over the last 18 months, the federal government has, of course, provided billions in relief for small businesses, workers who have lost their jobs through no fault of their own. As we exit COVID, as the recovery begins to roll out, as we're seeing this summer with more people coming from the rest of Canada as well as New England and other points, jobs are being created. So our party, should we form government, believes we need to turn to paychecks as opposed to additional COVID relief. If jobs are out there, we have to connect people with jobs to ensure that the economy is moving forward so people are back to work, and we think we have a plan for that.
Thank you, John. Jason, what changes do you recommend to the EI program to encourage people to return to work sooner?
Well, giving parents and the $10 a day daycare to help them the relief and go back to work is one of the things. And starting the new EI plan for gig workers will be a huge boost in getting these people back to work. And then the support sector, that we can make sure that they will give support to bars and restaurants in tax reliefs for rents and subsidies to get through the winter.
Thank you, Jason. John, what changes do you recommend to the EI program to encourage people to return to work sooner?
Well, in terms of returning to work, a lot of people have a hard time making an income. As I say, when I was young, it just was my father who was working. Now you have to have a 2-income family, and that's difficult. So we should be bringing in guaranteed livable income, which would give people a livable income as a base, and from that base, people would be able to afford to take jobs, and go and afford to go and get education to improve their employability.
Great. Thank you, John. Meryl, what changes do you recommend to the EI program to encourage people to return to work sooner?
Okay, first of all, and I heard a mention here of all the jobs the Liberals were creating right now. Well, a lot of those jobs would be people who were put out of work through this whole process of locking down our country while they were open to the big chain stores and the big stuff like that, but the little guys were shut down. They couldn't move, they couldn't run their businesses. Now some of those people are trying to come back, reestablish themselves. That's not creating new jobs, okay? That is trying to get people back from their old jobs and get their old jobs back. I don't think there should be a free ride for anybody. When we start giving people salaries, giving them guaranteed incomes, a lot of people are not going to work, and that's one of the problems right now. Employers cannot get workers.
Thank you, Meryl. Richard, you are last for this question. What changes do you recommend to the EI program to encourage people to return to work sooner?
So I agree with John. I believe, personally, I believe that the idea of a universal basic income is a much better solution. I think it costs money to live these days, and I think we've got enough money in our government to do that for people. I'm also hearing a couple of issues here. There's the issue with jobs, scarcity, but also affordability. There's some concern about the handouts being too much, and that's keeping people from going back to work because they're making so much just staying home. But I think the reality is the wage they were getting and the cost that it took on them to be able to make that wage just wasn't worth it. And I think I agree with them. Between housing costs, the price of prescription drugs, student loan debt, childcare, costs keep going up, but paychecks don't. I think on September 20th we can do better. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Richard. Now we're going to move on to question 10, but I do want to remind everyone at home that all of the candidates are hearing the questions for the first time tonight. I only read them just before we started recording the Meet the Candidates night. So if you're wondering about the questions as well, they're submitted from the public, so they came from viewers at home. If you don't hear your question worded exactly as you sent it in, that's because we've compiled it with hundreds of questions that did come in to come up with common themes so that we make sure that one question is maybe an umbrella of a ton of questions that came in on the same subject. So moving on to question 10, Jason, you are up. How will you support and advocate for members of the LGBTQ community in your riding?
Well, as a part of the LGBT community myself, I will advocate very strongly for them. Supporting them with mental health is really important, and making sure that we make sure that trans rights are approved and move forward, and making sure that we continue to ban the conversion therapy, the bill that was passed and that was voted down by the Conservative Party and other parties in the House. So hopefully moving forward we can get that ban.
Thank you, Jason. John, you are up. How will you support and advocate for members of the LGBTQ community in your riding?
Personally with my sister who is a lesbian and married, it was a little bit of a shock when we first found out. But I have come to understand it and support her. And I support anyone who is LGBT, support the rights of the people, and support the rights and the programs to help them help. Yes, thank you.
Thanks, John. Meryl, how will you support and advocate for members of the LGBTQ community in your riding?
First of all, I don't think I have to advocate and support for them. There was a time when that was a big issue. I don't think that's a big issue anymore. I don't see a whole lot of things in our society that are working against people in that community. I do take issue with treating small children and sex change operations and things like that, changing 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, and giving them hormones to affect their sexuality and their development as male or female. I think that's terribly wrong. I think that's a violation of our children, and I don't think we should be going there. I think let people live their lives, but let's not mess up the children. I don't think there's any justification for that.
Thanks, Meryl. Richard, how will you support and advocate for members of the LGBTQ community in your riding?
Thanks, Vicki. So I believe that all people, regardless of ethnicity, skin color, religion, or sexual orientation, are capable of greatness. I think it's time for leaders to show some leadership and stand up for people's rights. It's time for us to respect each other's right to be here, and I don't know any other way. Thanks.
Thanks, Richard. John, you're last for this question. How will you support and advocate for members of the LGBT community in your riding?
Thank you for the question. So like all communities in this large riding, my door is always open. In fact, I recently reached out to the Pride organization in Charlotte County to deepen the dialogue, to hear their concerns. Now, Jason just made it sound like the bill died, but in fact, the C6 bill that he talked about passed the House of Commons. And while there's been some criticism of some Conservatives' vote on this bill, in fact, it was the Liberal leader who killed this bill when he called this election. That bill was set to become law by Thanksgiving. Because we're having this election, the community that supports that bill should be deeply disappointed in the decision of Justin Trudeau to call an election, kill that bill, because by calling an election, that bill has to start over again. It will take years to pass again.
Thank you, John. We're moving on to question 11 now. We'll start with John Reist for this question. Do you reside in the riding If not, how do you believe you can represent the residents of this riding?
Yes, I do live in the riding. I live in Rolling Down, New Brunswick. I've lived there for 13 years with me and my wife. And we live in a log home that we built on 195 acres. I love planting trees and enjoying my retirement. I do mention that I am originally from Ontario, and I'm from away, but I made New Brunswick my home.
Thanks, John. Meryl, do you reside in the riding? If not, how do you believe you can represent the people of this riding?
Okay, well, I do live in the riding, and I've lived here for, I've lived in Fredericton now for the last, or outside of Fredericton, the outskirts of Fredericton, which is now in this riding. But anyways, I've lived here for, since the 1960s. I've been here for quite a while. Anyways, I'm committed to the place where I live. I'm committed to the province for sure. Not just our riding, but the whole province. And I think my interest at the federal level is for our country. First of all, our country. Let's get our country rolling. And then let's get down and bring it down to a level where people can make the changes they need to make, where jobs can be made at a level that supports them throughout our country. The other thing is moving barriers to trade across the country.
Thank you, Meryl. Richard, do you reside in this riding? If not, do you believe you can represent the residents of this riding?
I'm from Newfoundland, born and bred. I spent 10 years in Saskatchewan, Regina, and since 2013 I've lived in Hanwell. Like me, the NDP party consists of a lot of everyday Canadians. Our experiences as members of the 99%, I think, really put us in a great position to see what most Canadians are going through every day to try to make ends meet. I think a lot of people that end up in government don't necessarily have to deal with some of the same barriers. There might be some privilege there, but my time as a normal person has taught me to do more with less, and I think I can bring some of the skills that I've learned in my life to Ottawa and do some good on September. Thanks.
Thanks, Richard. John, do you reside in this riding? If not, how do you believe you can represent the residents of this riding?
Well, thanks for the question. So yes, I was born and raised in New Brunswick. I do live in St. Andrews. And to represent this riding, you really have to work with the 14 municipalities that make up New Brunswick Southwest, the LSDs, and there are 10 provincial MLAs. And regardless of their political stripes, you got to work with them. The MP has one job, that's to speak up for this riding. No one else is going to do that, so the member has to, I think, have the riding's values and priorities first and out front every day to make sure that our voice is heard in Parliament.
Thank you, John. Jason, you're last for this question. Do you reside in this riding? If not, how do you believe you can represent the residents of this riding?
Well, at the moment, I do not live in the riding. I live just outside. I do live in Rossay at the moment. But I entered politics last year, running in the provincial election, because I saw a need. There were gaps. Moving forward, I was unsuccessful. Moving forward, I thought there is still a need, there are still gaps, and we want to try to close them. Doesn't make my job any easier or harder. I'm here to learn. I'm here to meet the people. I will be moving to the riding very soon. It was one of the first places that my partner and I came to visit and fell in love with St. Andrews when we moved here. But I think we can represent all of the people of Ontario, or of New Brunswick, sorry. I moved from Ontario. But I believe that we can all do a great job and we can represent the people of the riding, and we live in or out of it.
Given the time frame we're at now, I think this will be the last question. We're at question 12, so Meryl, you get to start the final question of the evening. What do you consider to be the greatest tourism assets in your riding, and will tourism be a priority for you? In what way?
Tourism, I think the Atlantic coast is a wonderful draw for tourism. And the best thing that we can do to promote that, from my point of view, is get past all this lockdown stuff we've been at, get back to people getting back to work. I know a lot of people in this riding lost their incomes. People have motels, people have small businesses, they lost those. And we have to provide an environment in this country again where people can get back to work, where it's easy to get their businesses up, and we take out the barriers that keep them from being in business and taxed to death.
Thanks, Meryl. Richard, what do you consider to be the greatest tourism assets in your riding, and will tourism be a priority for you, and if so, in what ways?
So I would say that the greatest tourism asset in our riding is our people. People make the land come alive. I think it's important that we take care of each other. You know, if we've got housing problems and job shortages, you know, no one wants to see more people on their doorstep. So I think we need to do a little bit more upstream work to help people here, to make sure we're standing. But because, yeah, once we're alive. Sorry, and I'll end up, sorry. Yeah, so tourism, I would make tourism a priority if the riding came back and said, hey, we need something done with tourism. You know, right now there's not a whole lot we can do, but thank you.
Thanks, Richard. John, what do you consider to be the greatest tourism assets in your riding, and will tourism be a priority for you? If so, in what ways?
Great question, but a trick question, because there is no single one. Anyone knows this riding knows the assets we have. We've got the Roosevelt Park, we've got the Macadam train station, we've got the Belle Isle, we've got Chocolate Town, we've got Minister's Island, we've got Granite Town, we've got the Old Sow, we've got Grand Man and Whitehead Island, we've got King's Landing, the Queens County Fair. I could go on, take a lot more than a minute, but this is a diverse riding, and it is the most beautiful riding, I think, in Canada. We have so much to offer. We just need to do a better job getting people to come here. I think we're on track to do that.
Thank you, John. Jason, what do you consider the greatest tourism assets in your riding, and will tourism be a priority for you? If so, in what ways?
Well, as John said, I think it is a trick question. There's too many to list. You know, we've got, as a tourism, hospitality consultant, tourism has been first and foremost in most of my career. And coming and, you know, St. Andrews in itself, the whale watching, the golf, the sailing, Minister's Island, there's so much history in New Brunswick. And I think what we can do as a New Brunswick Southwest is to advertise that more. And we will also give, provide subsidies for restaurants and bars and for all the tourism industries down here with help with wage up to 75%, help them with rent through the winter. But the tourism is endless here, and it's a great place to be.
Thanks, Jason. John, I'll repeat it for you so you can get yourself more time. What do you consider to be the greatest tourism assets in your riding, and will tourism be a priority for you? If so, in what ways?
Well, as a male driver, I always listen to the CBC. And I remember this one song that they promoted several years ago about passing through. I don't know if you ever heard the song. The writer talks about people who are just passing through. They're passing through to get to PEI. They're passing through to go to Nova Scotia. They're passing through to get to the ferry to Newfoundland. New Brunswick is a great place that has lots of places, things to do and places to go. As I say, coming from Ontario, there's I'm amazed at what is available. And we have to go and let people know that this is a place to stop. Stop on your travels. Do not pass through and enjoy the province. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Well, if you can believe it, everyone, we have come to the end of the question period. So I hope your stress levels can go down a little bit right now, but we are going to jump right back into closing statements. As I mentioned before, we started the night off starting with Jason and went through alphabetically this way. John Williamson, the other John, there's two Johns here tonight. John Williamson will start first, and we will work our way back this way. But just right now, I'd like to congratulate you all on a really wonderful night. As a voter in this riding, I really feel like I know my candidates now, and I hope that the people at home really do feel the same. And I'd like to commend you all on being respectful of each other as well. And I'm looking forward to your closing statements. And John, you are up first. Your 3 minutes start now.
Well, thank you, Vicki. This will be the last time I'm speaking, so I want to thank you very much for moderating this. I also want to correct something I said earlier. I thank the St. Andrews Chamber. This is, in fact, the St. Stephen Area Chamber of Commerce. So I apologize for that. I was caught up in the bright lights, and seeing Vicki here, it threw me. So hats off to the St. Stephen Area Chamber of Commerce. Once again, an excellent debate. You can always be relied on to have these debates because of COVID this year. This is, in fact, the only debate candidates have had. The debate in Gagetown was canceled. And the debate in St. George was kind of merged into this one as a community-wide one. So hats off to St. Stephen once again. I always say St. Stephen is the rock in Charlotte County. It plays an important role, and they're doing that here again tonight. Look, we're applying for a job. The five people on this stage tonight are appealing to you, the voters, as applicants to a job. And at the end of the day, voters will decide who will represent New Brunswick Southwest in Parliament. I think my record speaks for itself. Over the last 2 years, I have done both two things. I have held the government accountable, fighting for New Brunswick families and workers and small businesses and seniors. At the same time, I've also been able to work with municipalities and provincial government to get things done for New Brunswick Southwest. I think this is the right approach. Whether or not after the election I find myself on the government bench or the opposition bench, having an MP that will speak out and get things done for the community is vital. And we always have to think about New Brunswick Southwest. That is our job, is to stand up for this riding. Not concerns about other parts of the country, but this riding. And so with that in mind, I hope you'll consider my record. Because I think at the end of the day, my job is to work with the municipalities and the provincial government. And it doesn't matter if the municipalities are more conservative or more liberal or progressive, and the same thing with the provincial government. At the end of the day, we have to put away our party colors and work together. New Brunswick is a proud province, but we're a small province. We have 10 seats. There are over 100 seats in Ontario. There are nearly 100 in Quebec. If we are divided as a province, if I can't get along with the MLAs in this riding, regardless of their party colors or the municipalities, we're going to be overlooked and we're not going to be able to get things done. I think I've delivered federal assistance here, both in terms of the COVID relief, but also infrastructures for this riding. And if I'm re-elected, I'll continue to do that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, John. And as I mentioned, we're going to be going reverse this way. So, Richard, you are next. Your 3 minutes for your closing remarks start now.
Thank you so much for joining us. On September 20th, you will choose one of us to represent you in Ottawa. On September 20th, you select your voice. But what I'm offering you isn't my voice, it's yours. I hear you, I see your barriers, I acknowledge your struggles, but I also see your greatness, your life, and your beauty, and it fills me with joy. Knowing that I had an opportunity to step up and stand for you was not an opportunity I could let pass by. Despite my years of practice at hiding in my basement, I had to be here. Friends, New Democrats are different because we're working people. For our whole history, we've fought together for better working conditions and standards that lift everyone up. We know that good jobs that treat people fairly make a real difference in Canadian families, and that setting Canadians up for success benefits us all. New ways of thinking can shape recovery from the COVID-19 crisis, can help make our economy fairer and deliver the results we want. What we've seen over the past 6 years is a Prime Minister who loves to say the right thing by promising to address the issues that matter to Canadians without following through. Liberals have been promising pharmacare and childcare for decades. We have a Conservative leader who wants to convince you that he's dragging his party kicking and screaming into the 21st century. All the while, the majority of his caucus contradict him on key social issues every day, and he continues to talk about privatizing your health care. Jagmeet Singh and the NDP have a record of fighting for you. Instead of protecting billion-dollar companies that profited off the pandemic but paid no tax, we have fought for you and your family, pushing the liberal government and supports that helped regular Canadians, small businesses, get through the pandemic. My friends, the NDP believes in all Canadians. We believe that if we want different results, we need to make different choices. On September 20th, the choice is yours. Are you ready to believe that we can do better? Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Meryl, you are up next, and your 3 minutes for your closing remarks start right now.
Starting now. Okay. First of all, I'm a patriot. That means that I would give up everything I've got for this country. I'm prepared to die for this country if that's what it takes. We are losing our country, we are losing our rights, we are losing our freedoms. There are 4 important freedoms. One is the freedom of voice. We should be able to say anything, and I think somebody once said, I don't agree with you, but I will fight to the death for your right to say it. And I think we've lost that in Canada with the censure of our voices. The second is the violation of our right to movement. Being locked down in a country where we can't travel from province to province, not only from county to county and across the country. That has really held us down. We're losing those, okay? In addition to that, the sovereignty over our bodies. These are big challenges, and these are national challenges. We have a prime minister in there who said he was going to change our country and make it a post-national country that was going to be something else. He talked about getting rid of old white Canadians. That's me, old stock, guys. That's you and a couple of us old gray-haired fellows in here. No. Those are violations of our citizenship. This is a country with a history, a country with a proud history, one of the places in the world that everybody wanted to come to. And as Mr. Trump once said, it's become a shithole. And that's a terrible thing to have anybody say about our country, but that's where we're going. As a patriot and a member of parliament for this country, my job is to get our country back, give our country back to our citizens, get their rights back, and then use the resources that we have to build this country strong and free, and that will support everybody from coast to coast. Thank you.
Thank you, Meryl. John, you have 3 minutes for your closing remarks, and those 3 minutes start right now.
Thank you. I would like to thank you for listening to me tonight. This is my first time at public speaking. Did you notice? Many of you will not vote Green. You believe we do not have a chance, but I ask you for your vote. Voting Green sends a message to government that we must take climate change seriously, that they have to take wealth inequality seriously, and take the voice of our constituents seriously. We need new voices in Parliament that will provide new ideas. Send me to Ottawa. Let me serve you and our community. Vote Green.
Thank you, John. Jason, your 3 minutes for your closing remarks start right now.
Well, thank you, the Chamber, for having us again tonight, and Vicki, thank you for moderating tonight. Throughout the last year, the Liberal Party has focused on delivering support for Canadians and keeping Canada moving forward. The Liberal Party is the only party with a positive plan to finish the end on the fight of COVID-19. To invest in the middle class and the most vulnerable and protect a clean environment for future generations. While some of the party are focused on divisive politics or taking back Canada, our focus is delivering support for Canadians and moving forward with a bold action of healthcare, economy, and the environment, with equality and so much more. A re-elected government will invest billions of dollars to make sure the seniors are able to stay in their homes longer and have support in their retirements. A re-elected government will build and refurbish 1.4 million homes and put a stop to profiteering and unfair speculations. A re-elected government will fight for climate change, leave a safe and healthy environment for our children and grandchildren, and we will finish the fight against COVID-19 and make sure that all Canadians are safe through this pandemic. We will make sure that the big banks and the wealthiest among us pay their fair share, and we will invest $5 billion to increase the availability of mental health care through the new Canadian mental health transfer, because mental health is health. Reconciliation with the Indigenous people is paramount to who we are as Canadians, and a re-elected government will continue to work with the Indigenous people moving forward in reconciliation. We, as New Brunswickers in New Brunswick Southwest, we need to be on the right side of government, and if elected, we will be the voice of the people. We know what we have to look for. We know we have a lot of more work to do, and together we can build back better and move forward for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. I want to thank you all again. It has been a privilege to moderate tonight. I've learned so much about all of you, and you're all so respectful of each other. This is a point in time where I would normally ask an audience to stand up and clap, but we don't have an audience really tonight because of COVID-19 regulations. So all of you at home, I hope that you enjoyed the show. I want to take a moment, though, to acknowledge other media that are here tonight. Marlo from the Telegraph-Journal, Derwin from Quaddy Tides, and Sarty and Chrissy from the Courier, who are watching at home and are going to report on this event tonight. So it's pretty impressive that we might have a small media scene in New Brunswick, but we are all friends and we all are dedicated to our job, and that is another thing that makes our province and this area of our province so unique. It is great to be able to call them up and have them come cover this as well. So just wanted to give them a shout out. New Brunswick Southwest is obviously extremely diverse geographically in terms of what our concerns are, but at the end of the day, we're one big community and we all have to look out for our neighbors, and I think you've given us all so much to think about tonight when we go to the polls, and now it is up to you at home. I hope you feel informed from watching this event and getting to know your candidates, so please get out and vote.